earth-shattering 2.7 million-year-old ice core. Again, this is propaganda, is all it is. They're counting every dark line as summertime when the snow melted on top, turned to ice that was clear. The rest of the year, it just squeezed down and packed. Let's see, show you a picture of it here. So the white is supposed to be wintertime when it packs down. The clear is supposed to be summertime when it melted a little bit and refroze as clear ice. So they'll say we got these ice cores. They got huge freezer full of these things. What a waste of government money, okay? Here's a guy, snowpack at the Sawtooth Avalanche Center. It's got a whole bunch of layers to it. In one season, those layers are not annual rings, guys, they're annual layers. Okay, you have landslides or snow slides, let's see. 50 Eskimo words for snow. There's wet snow, dry snow, heavy snow, big snow, powder snow, crud, packed powder, granular snow. I'm glad to live in Alabama, brother. I don't have to worry about none of this, okay? They have these ice cores and they have rings in them, like a tree ring. There's an example right there. Well, if on a warm day, you might get a layer of ice on top that'll refreeze and make clear ice. Cold at night, warm in the daytime. You could get a new layer every day. You could get several a day. Did the temperature drop today or what? I'm out there giving tours in the Jeep and all of a sudden, man, about froze. Here's an article that says, in Greenland and Antarctica, where the weather is consistently dry and cold, glaciers are miles thick, but the annual rings are very thin. There's the problem. They're not annual. The deepest ice core measured 10,000 feet, which is 135,000 years. This is called baloney, okay? Warm days and cold nights would give 7 layers in 1 week. Those are not annual layers. Annual layers in direct, okay. In World War II, P-38 landed in Greenland. They flew to England to join the war, and they got caught in a storm, turned around, tried to get home, and ran out of gas over Greenland. So they crash landed in Greenland, right there, P-38. So some rich guy in Kentucky said, hey, I'd like to have one of those planes for my museum. Let's go get it. He paid a whole bunch of money to have a bunch of guys go find that airplane. There were 5 of them, and take it apart and bring it back to Kentucky. Middleborough, Kentucky. You can go, I don't know if you can ride in it now. You can go see it. The Lost Squadron. There it is. They flew over to England, ran out of gas, had to come back home, or got caught in a storm or something. When they finally found the airplanes, they'd been in the ice for 48 years, covered by 263 feet of ice in 48 years. They had a special tube that they would run hot water through and it would melt its way down. They called it a gopher. So they went down, took one of the airplanes apart. And see, the ice rings in Greenland, the Lost Squadron it's called. They took it apart, brought the pieces up through the hole, and put it back together. It's in Middleborough, Kentucky, if you want to go see it at the Air Museum there. They are in the ground, under the ice, for 48 years. 263 feet below the surface. That's 5.5 feet of ice per year average. 1,828 years, 26 years, 5.5 feet. They only went back 1,800 years, not millions. Deeper ice gets pressed and the layers are thinner because of the pressure. So accumulating all that ice in 4,400 years is no problem. And planes do not sink in the ice. The nose is always heavy. If you run out of gas, you want it to come in nose first so you can steer it. You don't want it to come in tail first. So they always balance the plane so they're nose heavy. If the plane's resting on the ice, and if it's sinking because of just melting through the ice, it would be nose down, and it's not. The planes are level. 63 feet down, they hit the cover, plywood cover, left in 1983, 8 years earlier. Had to go 63 feet to go back 8 years? I talked to Bob Carden, right there, at the museum in Middleborough, Kentucky. He's the guy who helped dig out the plane. I said, Bob, were there ice rings above the airplane? He said, many hundreds of them. I said, how do you get hundreds of ice rings, if they're annual, in 48 years? He said, who told you those are annual rings? They're not annual. Summer, winter, summer, winter. He said they had 30 to 40 rings in the 9 years old they're digging on the project. but they're still calling them in Scientific American annual rings. I'm sorry, the annual layers. This is baloney, okay? Pure baloney. How far can ice cores be dated? 800,000 years. Yeah. Anyway, so that's another one of the many scientific indicators. How many more you want,
Ice
Donny?
cores. So, Kent, you were arguing that they're not annual layers. It's basically just warm and cold spells. So you can get a bunch of layers quickly, right?
Well, yeah, the people who dug out the airplane told me there were hundreds of layers above the airplane that's only been there 48 years.
Yeah. So I wonder, with all the layers that we see that, that the evolutionists will point to, would we largely explain those layers due to the rapid post-flood ice age? They would accumulate rapidly during those years?
Some may have accumulated rapidly, that's for sure. But you probably have this in Canada. You can have a heavy snowfall and it packs down. If it packs the snow, it turns to milky colored white ice. If it melts a little bit and then refreezes, now it's clear ice. There's all kinds. Eskimos have a bunch of different words for snow and different words for ice, or different kinds of ice. So I think what they're getting is white, clear, white, clear, white, clear. All it means is cold, warm, cold, warm, cold, warm. You get 3 of those in one day.
Yeah, those are great points. So and then you discuss lunar recession. That's another great line of evidence that limits the age of the Earth. I've seen 2 main arguments. Hugh Ross, who you debated years ago, he said, well, it doesn't recede in a linear fashion, I think he said. But how does that help? How does that help them?
It lets them keep imagining that the Earth is billions of years old. It's just imagine. It's all SpongeBob, fairy tale stuff. These ones I have on my screen here, all of them are covered and more on my DVD number 1 of my series, 18-hour seminar on creation and science and the Bible. Part 1 is all about just the age of the Earth, how to prove it cannot be billions of years old. I'm sorry, if you need billions of years for your theory, get a new theory. You can't have billions of years.
I like how you also pointed out that even with lots of time, Kent, even with billions of years, they're not going to take their fish to fishermen. They're not going to take their frog to prince.
Well, see, time actually makes it worse. Everything falls apart with time. Doesn't get better. Go look in your sock. Go look in your sock drawer right now. You'll see what I'm talking about.
Oh, I know. It's bad.
Okay.
Degeneration, extinction, more of a mess. That's what happens with time. More entropy. And so another big line of evidence that they'll point to try and support an old Earth brother, ice cores which you demolished. That's why they're so angry, Kent. Their best lines of evidence you demolish over and over again. Tree ring dating. They'll say, well, tree ring dating demonstrates that these trees have to be a lot older than 6,000 years. What's a good response to that?
I think I've got that in here somewhere. The oldest tree. Here we go. The oldest tree. The bristlecone pine. We've got a log here in our science center out of a bristlecone pine from California, not the oldest one. They kind of hide which one is actually the oldest, but somebody brought a piece to me years ago. We counted the rings with a needle and a magnifying glass, 700 rings. Not necessarily 700 years old, 700 rings. See, the tree ring is not an exact science dating, just like ice layers. Trees can produce 2 rings a year. The soft, light-colored ring there, it represents a time of lots of rain, lots of sunshine, fast growth. If it does not get lots of sunshine and lots of water, it'll give a hard ring. And so those rings are hard, soft, hard, soft, hard, soft, all the way out to the edge. What if you have a wet spring and the tree produces a big soft ring? Then you have a hot, dry summer for a couple months. It's going to produce a hard ring. Then you get a wet fall. Now you're going to get 2 rings a year. Let's see. Occasionally, trees produce more than 1 ring a year. Extra ring is called a false ring. Okay. Let's see. Evidence for multiple ring growth per year in bristlecone pine. Here's the article about it. It might interest you to know that trees go back 8,000 years without being disturbed by Noah's flood. Really? This is a secular website, obviously. Guys, let me explain. First of all, trees can survive a flood. A tree could actually be ripped out by the roots, float around and land and grow again in a new location. Or it could be just just because Noah's in the ark for a year does not mean the whole world's flooded for a year. Parts of the world might have only been flooded for a couple hours or whatever long it takes to kill everybody. If the crust of the earth is flexing up and down after it got broken up like an eggshell, Noah was in the ark for a year. That we know, according to the Bible. How long each square inch was covered? Probably some places are still underwater, like Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, Indian Ocean. So I think a lot of it, though, was maybe only underwater for a few weeks, enough to drown everybody. So some trees could survive that. Anyway, tree ring dating, what else got on here about? Oldest tree in the world is 4,300 years old.
Oh, look at that. Matches up with the Bible.
Yeah. They got that 8,000 number by overlapping rings. Here's a tree. They find a log in a log house and look, it's got the same ring pattern, so they overlap it to stretch it back further. From dead bristlecone pines. Let's see. They show up in tree rings. Okay, let's see. Here's what they did. Overlap. Log found in a building, some ruins, a dead tree, and a living tree. This is, I think, real shaky, okay, on shaky ground. Trees on opposite sides of the same mountain will get different growth patterns because as the air blows up the mountain, it drops all the rain. The leeward side and the windward side, it's opposite sides of the same mountain. Trees can have growing patterns, growing near each other, have very different growth patterns. Rain shadow can affect this, prevailing wind patterns. It's not an exact science. Trees can have different, let's see, prevailing wind. Oh, one tree can be growing, a big tree next to a little tree. The big tree gets all the sunlight. Little guy doesn't. They're still growing one ring a year, but they're going to look, the ring pattern's going to look very different on the little guy because he's not getting the sunlight. Once the big one's gone, then the little guy takes off. One area of a forest can be diseased, right beside a disease-free tree area, a disease-free area. Things that can have trees growing near each other have very different growth patterns. Disease. One area of a forest may be diseased right beside a disease-free area. A tree growing in the shadow of a big tree will have different growth patterns. Good soil versus bad soil. That can be right next door to each other. Soil conditions can vary, causing different growth patterns. General Sherman tree they thought was 5,000 to 6,000 years old. Wow, it's only 2,000, got 2,000 rings. They just make up a number. Scientists trim off 3,000 years. General Sherman thought to be the oldest tree, thought to be estimated to be 2,000 years old. Other trees in that area are believed to be 3,200 based on tree ring counts. Yeah, General Sherman tree from the giant sequoia. I saw that years ago when I lived in California. 2,000 years old. Closer to General Grant trees, closer to 1,600. Well, what's the matter, guys? Trees can handle a week or two of flooding. Tree species will widely vary in flood tolerance. One extreme, trees that are native to the floodplains, like cottonwoods, can withstand months of being inundated. So what's the oldest tree? Methuselah tree. Let's see, 4,800 years old. This one says it's 4,300 years old, Earth's oldest organism. This one says 4,800 years. I think they don't know, okay. There's the Methuselah tree. Make up these numbers all the time. I think the Bible is very clear. God made everything about 6,000 years ago. 4,400 years ago, there was a flood. Some of the trees might have survived the flood. No problem out of me. Trees survive a flood, can be uprooted, redeposited, and survive. But they're saying 370 million years ago for their theory. Okay, so that's what I cover, Donny, on my video number 1 about the age of the Earth, along with about 15 or 20 more scientific indicators.
So we just need about another 20 hours with you.